Hello, everyone. I'm hoping that you all had a wonderful Easter and were able to, if you so chose, to live stream your own personal church service or whatever, or however you do things on Easter, and maybe even have some semblance of an Easter at your house with your family who's in your house, or whatever you do to celebrate. Um, we want to pick up where we left off, and that's with unit planning. And unit planning, whether it's a week long unit, a 2 month unit, a 2 week unit, or a 3 day unit, doesn't matter. There are certain things that you have to look at, you have to think about, and how are you going to put those together in a cohesive manner. You're going to do some mini unit planning as you go through the program in various courses. They're not going to call them units, but they basically are. If you hang 2 or 3 lesson plans together, so let's say you are going to be teaching nouns. You are going to start with, more than likely, concrete nouns, and then you might move to common and proper, but you're going to still be teaching nouns. It all has to hang together. So when you're thinking about a unit topic, or maybe something comes to your head and you think, you know what, that would be really cool to do, you have to reflect on whether it's appropriate according to several different criteria that are used. And one of those criteria is it a long enough theme to get at least a couple of lessons out of, but is it not too long that the students are going to have lost interest by the time you get finished with it? What is long enough? What is too long? If you think back to high school English, many of your high school English teachers taught books. You read a book and then you talked about it and you worked with that book. Those were units. They put those into units, and they were usually no more than 2 or 3 weeks long, because then you moved on to something else. So you have to stop and think about it, and you have to look at your standards, of course. Will you be able to find enough material? Not just frou-frou and fluff, but solid, good material. Are you going to be able to find enough stuff to support that unit for the duration that you want it to go? And does the theme have a broad real life application? Does it have substance? Once in a while, you can do something that you just think would be fun, but the vast majority of the time, you have to do things in your classroom that the students can use and they can pull into later life. How are you going to pull this together? How are you going to do this? In some schools, entire schools, like all the fifth grade teachers, will get together, even if they're departmentalized. That the math teachers and the social studies teachers and the English teachers and the PE teachers and the whatever teachers will get together, and maybe they're studying a certain unit in one or the other of the classes, and they will try to adjust they'll give and go a little bit and adjust their teaching and their classes to kind of match up with that, so the students are learning about that all the way across. That's called teaching across the curriculum, or cross curricular. That's something that you can do, especially in the departmentalized grades, middle school and high school, in your own self-contained classroom at the elementary level. You can do it on your own. That's how I used to teach in second grade. Was I taught in units and I took it across the curriculum, whatever it was that we were studying. Now, you have to decide also, is what you are teaching worth spending the instructional time on? Are you wasting those children's precious minutes of instructional time? Or is it worth the time that you're going to put into it and that you're going to ask them to put into it? Are they learning? Are you hitting standards? Are you satisfying the curriculum as outlined by the Board of Education in the district in which you're teaching? These are all pieces that you really have to stop and think about. It's not teachers don't just pull stuff out of their nose and say, well, I want to do this. There's got to be a reason behind it. If the principal walks into your classroom, Or when you turn your lesson plans in every week and the principal goes over those lesson plans, and they will, and they say, well, this seems a little silly. Why are you doing this? What's your rationale for this? You better be able to explain it to them. And it's not just, well, I don't know, I just thought it might be kind of fun. No, that's not good enough. They can have fun outside. But you, even if you're not, I'm not suggesting you don't have fun and entertain and whatever while you're teaching, but you also have to be instructing, not just frou frou. So, as we're thinking about this, also, will students be interested and be motivated to learn? Are they going to be interested in what you're talking about, or is it just something that you're interested in? That's a big question, because if it's not, you have enough trouble getting them into what you want them, what they have to learn out of the textbook sometimes, because they aren't interested in it. I distinctly remember when I was in high school, and my seeing when on my senior year, I in my English class, the teacher handed us the book Anna Karenina, and that thing was about, it looked about 3 feet thick, and you had to use a magnifying glass to read it. The print was so small, and I decided when she handed the book to me, yeah, no, I'm not reading this. And it wasn't until several years ago that I actually watched the movie and figured out what the book was about. I wasn't interested. That's not something I was interested in at all. So I didn't participate. I got absolutely nothing out of it. Are you teaching things that the students are interested in if when you're putting together a unit, especially if you're going away from the prescribed textbook, which is not a sin. I'm not suggesting it is. But if you're going away from that, is what you're doing, does it fit into that curriculum somewhere? So when we think about unit planning, you develop and developing the curriculum, you have to think about your long-term goals for your subject or the subjects. One of the things that I would strongly, strongly, strongly encourage you to do when you interview for a job and they ask you, what if it's not brought up in the interview, and they ask you what at the end of your interview, okay, we've asked you all these questions, what questions do you have for us? One of the questions that I would strongly encourage you to ask, there are two, but the first one would be, do you have a curriculum map, and if so, can I look at it? Are the teachers allowed to look at the curriculum map? Curriculum maps are tools that must be continuously living documents. By that I mean they need to be in constant flux and change. You should be able to pull out the curriculum map for any district in the state and look to see what kindergarten is doing all the way through high school, seniors in high school, and they should be matched up with the standards and matched up with the assessments assigned for those standards. Why is that important? Well, if you're teaching 7th grade math and you don't know what they did in 6th grade, so you don't know what your 7th graders have had, and 5th grade and 4th grade and on down the line, and you don't know what they're supposed to know to go to 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, and so on, how are you going to know that you're giving them what they need? In the same time, in the same token, if you are teaching and the eighth you're teaching 7th grade math, the 8th grade math teacher comes and says, you know what, these kids didn't get enough of this last year because they don't get it and I'm having to go back and reteach, then you need to adjust your curriculum to make sure that it wasn't just the students, that it maybe is a flaw in the curriculum that's there. You may need to add to it. It's part of the information. So the first thing I would encourage you to ask is, do they have a curriculum guide or a curriculum map for the district? And do have teachers have access to it? The second thing I would encourage you to ask that goes along with all of this kind of thing is, do teachers get together, or is there time built in somewhere during the month, the weeks, the days, whatever, that teachers can talk between and among grade levels? Is there articulation? Those are called articulation meetings. Or is there articulation going on between and among grade level meetings? When you use the word between, you're talking about two. When you use among, it's more than two. So are we talking between and among, or are we being just isolated in our own little fiefdom? You don't want that. You don't want that at all. So you have to look at your long-term goals, and your long-term goals may cross the curriculum up and down the grade levels. And you will hear, as long as we're right here, I'm thinking about it, you will hear two different words associated with curriculum. One word is the horizontal curriculum. Another word is the vertical curriculum. The horizontal curriculum is what are you doing in your grade level? It goes right across the grade level. The vertical curriculum is what is going on from kindergarten all the way up through seniors in high school. That's the vertical curriculum. And while we're here, this is not for units, but as long as we're talking about curriculum, because these are all things that we would have been talking about if we were on campus. Another piece that doesn't go directly with this unit planning is called the hidden curriculum. The hidden curriculum is curriculum that is not in the textbooks. You're teaching the kids sometimes, and sometimes you're going to have to do this with your students. Please and thank you. Which direction is this going? Are we teaching to the right or to the left? Are we teaching to the top or to the bottom? What's the hidden curriculum? What is our hidden agenda here? The hidden curriculum is all permeates the building, completely permeates the building in every school district. So the hidden curriculum is always there. What is it that we're actually teaching, even though we're teaching our subject area? Are we teaching it from one stance or another? Are we teaching it more to the top of the student, to the top student body? Or how are we teaching our curriculum? Another way to use your reflective action is to consider, you have to think about the skills and the knowledge the students will need to be successful in this unit with new material. Can your children handle this? Will they have the background knowledge and what they need to get through what you want them to do? You can pre-test your students to assess their present knowledge and skills. That's where that pre-assessment comes in your lesson plan. See if they indeed have the pre-assessment pre-skills that are going to be necessary. If they already have something, if there's something on your pre-test and 95% of the class already knows that, don't waste your precious instructional time reteaching it. Hit it, check it, move on. Some may have already mastered most of the content. So consider ways to challenge them by compacting the curriculum so they can go on to more challenging material. If you can do that and keep those top students at the top while pulling the bottom students up, and let me tell you, that is not an easy task. Most of the time, what we do is we teach to the middle. So the bottom students don't get it and the top students aren't challenged. Teaching is a real juggling act, trying to keep all the balls in the air without dropping any. And unfortunately, we're talking about students. So we have to be very careful what we do and how we do it. You need to consider, how are you going to scaffold new material? This scaffolding right here, the strategies, the scaffolding, this is where in the lesson plan it talks about now I lost the word. It asks you what you're going to do to help them, and I can't remember the word off the top of my head now. But what strategies, how are you going to scaffold for them? What can you do to help them? And as you plan curriculum, teachers tend to ask themselves these questions. And right here, because I'm running out of time, is where we're going to pick up in the next video. So stay safe, stay healthy, stay home, and I will talk to you later.